Well, there seems to be a rise in the abuse of the debit order system by consumers. So what innovative tools are available for the industry to help reduce those? Well, industry players met today to discuss the future of payments. For more on that, I'm joined by the Chief Operating Officer at the Payments Association of South Africa. That's Enoch Malisa. Thank you so much, Enoch, for your time today. We'll get to the debit orders in a moment, but overall, how would you say our payment system in South Africa compares to our peers?
Our payment system in South Africa is very sophisticated compared to our peers. What has become even apparent is that whilst globally we're looking at the innovation and also what they call faster payment or immediate payments, we've had real-time clearing in South Africa for a while. So there are certain aspects where we, by leaps and bounds, very much at an advanced stage. Some of the areas that we may be still struggling with is on the data enrichment in terms of payments, and that's part of the landscape going forward. And also the transparency, and also looking at other forms of payment. Now, when we talk transparency, and we'll just probe later on when we talk around cross-border, some of the issues that the regulators are also concerned about that we can expand.
All right, and we'll get to that in a moment. Let's talk debit orders, because this is quite a hot issue at the moment. Let's start from the merchant side. I understand that there's a concern that consumers might be abusing them. Just tell us what that abuse might entail.
So I think, Siki, to better illustrate this for everybody, including the viewers at home, I just want to illustrate very quickly what we call a four-party model. And the four-party model, simply put, is you have SIPO, who goes to a shop, call it MTN, call it a microfinancier, they sign a contract. At the bottom of what they sign is debit order details. We call that a mandate. Now that mandate is retained by the merchant, in this case, MTN. That mandate will then be collated at the end of the month. It then is generated into a payment file, which MTN will then send into their bank. Their bank will then plug those transactions into the national payment systems, which eventually then debits SIPO's account. Now, what is the current challenge that we have today is that the banks which are supposed to be protecting SIPO don't see these mandates. So whether the mandate was a legitimate mandate or it was an incorrect mandate, the bank is none the wiser.
Because it sits with the merchant,
because it sits with the merchant.
Or whoever
now, that's where we need to start. So over a period of time, the banking industry has looked at ways of how do we then improve the ways in which customers can query, the faster resolution of the issues when customers query, and we then started introducing a number of innovations. Those innovations included enabling the banks to deal directly with the customers as opposed to pointing customers to the merchants, but at the same time enabling the banks, or the banks enabling themselves and their customers through banking apps and other technology, such that customers can then be able to do self-service in that space. What has that now introduced? It has introduced a situation where it is now easy to dispute a debit order and the money becomes available to you immediately. Now, what are we seeing? We've got three types of debit orders. We've got the ADO, which is simply authenticated early debit orders. Then we've got the NADO, which is non-authenticated early debit orders. Both these are classified as early because they happen whilst we're asleep. So your salary comes in at midnight.
Those beeps.
and they then come through. Then the last one is your normal EFT debit orders, which then happens after midday, probably around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So what we've seen is with the early window, which is a much more secured window, the NADO element is starting to have lots of disputes. So we've got about 12.7% of all debit orders in the NADO system that are disputed. Now, that accounts to about 1.6 billion rands a month.
Goodness.
We've then done an analysis on those numbers to see what it entails. About 90% of the data that we've the data that's been collated from the banks, 90% of the data shows that those disputes the mandates were legitimate.
Okay.
What is it speaking to? Might just be speaking to the indebtedness of consumers. Because you know that if I dispute this, money comes back immediately. So if I'm running short of cash, I'll go within, whatever mechanisms.
But there have also been illegitimate debit orders.
Absolutely.
And we know this.
And that's what we also want to talk to. And our role from a PASA point of view is to ensure that the consumers are protected, but at the same time we need to protect the users of the system, the companies that are collecting, because our mandate is to provide a sound system that has got both security, transparency, and once transactions are there, it's quite clear how they need to operate. Now, allow me then to talk a little bit around...
Very quickly, because we're literally out of time, but very quickly.
Let's then quickly talk around the consumers. What have we done? What are we doing for consumers? There is a system that is now in production from a number of major banks. We call it Debit. This system will then help us to move the mandate from the merchant to the bank.
Okay.
What does it mean? So all the debit orders that Siki has will need to be re-authenticated. So your bank will say, we see that you've got 5 debit orders. They'll engage your suppliers of service, and you'll then be able, through the electronic means in the bank, say, yes, I authenticate. And when it's then sitting with the bank and there are issues, the bank will be the first one to protect you.
Okay. We'll have to leave it there. Still want to talk about cross-border and cryptocurrency, but we'll do that at another stage. Thanks for your time this evening. The Chief Operating Officer at the Payments Association of South Africa, Enoch Malisa.